In 2018, Jose Mourinho made a bold decision about Michael Carrick that most people quietly ignored. At the time, it sounded like a manager backing his own player. Because Carrick wasn't a headline footballer, he didn't sprint through midfield, he didn't score screamers every week. But Mourinho wasn't talking about the noise, passes, or even talent. He was talking about something rarer. He's not just a player, Mourinho said. He's somebody who has a big understanding of the game. He said he wished Carrick was 10 years younger, and then did something even more telling. When Carrick retired, Mourinho didn't let him leave. He made him a coach immediately. He has qualities that we believe can make him a good coach. At the time, people shrugged. Carrick, a manager? But Mourinho wasn't guessing, he was predicting. And over the next 10 minutes, you're going to see why that sentence wasn't just a praise, it was a prophecy. Jose Mourinho is many things. Controversial, a serial winner, confrontational, unforgettable. But above all, he's a reader of football minds. This is a manager who built dynasties at Porto, Chelsea, Inter Milan and Real Madrid. He's won the Champions League with 2 different clubs. He's collected league titles across 4 different countries. And through it all, Mourinho has had one consistent gift: identifying players who think like coaches. When he arrived at Manchester United in 2016, Mourinho inherited an aging squad led by a 35-year-old Michael Carrick. Most people assumed the midfielder's days were numbered. He was old, slow, and too quiet for Mourinho's intense environment. Jose's profile of midfielders needed pace, strength, and even the willingness to do the dirty work for 90 minutes, all of which Carrick wasn't. So naturally, people expected Jose to freeze him out. But Mourinho saw something different. He saw a brain. He's phenomenal, Mourinho said in October 2016. No doubts about it. He gives us stability in our game. He gives mental freedom to the other guys around him to be more offensive. Mental freedom, not physical dominance, not pace, not power, freedom. That's not how managers typically describe aging midfielders. That's how they describe players who control games without touching the ball. And Mourinho went further. It's a pity sometimes you can't stop the clock, he said. I wish he was 10 years younger. Coming from anyone else, that might sound like nostalgia. From Mourinho, it was frustration. He had found the brain he needed, but the time was running out. And here's the part people missed. When Carrick finally retired in 2018, Mourinho didn't send him off with a testimonial and a handshake. He hired him the very next day.
And I played the last league game, I think it was a Saturday, and a Sunday morning about 8:30. I'll never forget how my phone went. It was Jose. About coaching, about training, about the team for the final. Straight the next, literally the next day. And I was like, oh, that was quick.
No youth team, apprenticeship, no scouting role, no waiting period. Straight into the first team coaching staff. When asked why, Mourinho simply said, Carrick is a guy who understands the game, who lives it, and it's impossible for anyone else than him to help me. He has qualities that we believe can make him a good coach, Mourinho explained. Some guys prefer to study, go to youth football, but in this situation we decided the bridge can be the bridge. Mourinho saw a player who was already coaching on the pitch. Why delay what was already obvious? Most people didn't see it that way. Carrick was never Gerrard, flying into tackles with his heart on his sleeve. He wasn't Lampard, arriving late into the box to score. He wasn't Scholes, spraying Hollywood passes that made highlight reels. He was the quiet one that made it all work. He was the orchestrator from deep. He was the engine when United went on a run that truly made them the greatest team in Europe. He was a regular starter during the 2008 and 9 and 2009 and 10 seasons, winning multiple Premier League titles. But in football, quiet players get forgotten quickly. Michael Carrick never got the hype he deserved. And even for England, he was ignored. In a world with Gerrard, Scholes, Lampard and so many other greats, Michael Carrick was not given the chance to prove himself. But Mourinho doesn't watch football the way fans do. Fans follow the ball, Mourinho follows instinct. Where a player stands before the pass arrives, how he reacts when possession is lost, how he controls the temperature when others panic. Carrick was elite in all of it, and 6 years later, Manchester United would finally understand why that mattered. When Carrick stepped into his managerial role, he didn't invent anything new. He didn't need to. He just looked at Manchester United and used common sense. And after years of instability, that alone felt like a revolutionary tactic. Before Carrick, United were stuck in identity crisis mode. Ruben Amorim's 3-4-2-1 had turned the team into something confusing. Amorim made the ball something Manchester United couldn't use, even famously saying they need to suffer multiple times. In his system, there were too many players in the same zones, wing-backs disconnected from the attack, midfield outnumbered in transitions, and Bruno Fernandes, the most dangerous player, drifting between positions without reference points. So what actually changed? First, it's important to note this wasn't a new manager bounce, because the first thing Carrick did was remove the problem. The 3-4-2-1 experiment was scrapped entirely. He returned to the most logical shape for the squad, a 4-2-3-1 that has always been the DNA of the Red Devils. But the real genius is how Manchester United now build from the back. When United played out from deep, the difference was immediate. Instead of forcing vertical runs, the team creates stable lines. The centre-back split normally, one full-back tucks in slightly, and crucially, the double pivot stays connected. Before Carrick's system, Casemiro was isolated without a good partner to cover for him. He had to cover ground sideways and vertically, nearly impossible for a 33-year-old. But now, with Manu alongside him, the responsibilities split clearly. Casemiro protects space and controls tempo, Manu provides mobility and progression, and this restores something United had completely lost, a midfield spine. In fact, Manu is a really interesting case because under Amorim he was ignored and called entitled for saying he deserved to play. Amorim ran a tight ship led by one rule: if you didn't conform to his standards, you're out of the team. But Michael Carrick has stripped that all away. He integrated Manu straight into the first team again, and United is on an unbeaten run that many haven't seen in years. Now when the press comes, there's always a short outlet. United no longer have to go long under pressure. They can actually play through. But the biggest tactical fix was Bruno's position. Under Amorim, Fernandes was floating everywhere, dropping deep to collect the ball, drifting wide, trying to solve defenses rather than create chances. Carrick fixed it with one simple adjustment. Bruno is now a true number 10 again, a central reference point between the lines. When United beat the first press, they don't recycle wide anymore. They find Bruno in the pockets. And Bruno facing forward means everything changes. Runners like Mbeumo, Cunha and even Dorgu activate. Wide plays time their movement, transitions become more structured instead of desperate. The system now feeds his strengths instead of asking him to solve problems. Defensively, the change is just as clear. United fall into a compact 4-4-2 block. Bruno steps up next to the striker, wingers drop into midfield lines. The distances between lines shrink. This fixes the biggest issue from the old system. The midfield was constantly exposed. United are more stable now, and stability has produced results nobody expected. Manchester City beaten at Old Trafford 2-0. Arsenal away 3-2. Unbeaten so far, the best run United have had in years. 4 wins in 5 games, the best run United have had in years. But here's what separates Carrick from the managers who came before him. He didn't arrive with a philosophy and force the players to fit it. He looked at what he had and built around it. Fitting round pegs in round holes, best players in their best positions. It sounds obvious, but after a decade of managers trying to be revolutionaries, Carrick did something radical. He just coached the football. Here's what most people forget about Jose Mourinho's time at Manchester United. Yes, it ended badly. Yes, the third season collapsed. Yes, the dressing room fractured. But before all of that, Mourinho actually won. Europa League, League Cup, second place in the Premier League. He delivered trophies when Van Gaal couldn't, when Moyes couldn't, when everyone after him couldn't. He was the last true winner at Old Trafford. And at the centre of his best United teams, Michael Carrick. He might have not played much, but he guided the players in the squad. He was the only player he refused to let go even when the legs were gone. Now ask yourself, why would Carrick ignore everything he learned from that man? Because the truth is, he hasn't. Watch this United team closely and you'll see it. The compact defensive shape? Mourinho. The quick transitions through central midfield? Mourinho and Sir Alex Ferguson. The emphasis on controlling games rather than dominating possession? Mourinho. The willingness to absorb pressure and strike with precision? Also Mourinho. This isn't a coincidence. Carrick spent 2.5 years learning directly from one of the greatest tactical minds in football history. He sat in team meetings, he heard the analysis, he watched how Mourinho prepared for specific opponents, and then he spent another 6 months as his assistant coach, seeing the game from the other side of the touchline. That education doesn't disappear. When Carrick set United up in a mid-block against City, he's channeling the same principles Mourinho used to frustrate Guardiola at Chelsea. When he tells Bruno to stay high and wait for transitions, he's echoing what Mourinho demanded from his number 10s. When he selects Casemiro for experience and composure over younger alternatives, he's applying the same logic Mourinho used with Carrick himself. But here's where Carrick is smarter than people realise. He's not copying Mourinho, he's adapting him. Mourinho's United could be negative, defensive, siege mentality football that suffocated attacking talent. Carrick has kept the structure but released the handbrake, a blueprint he learned from Sir Alex Ferguson, whom he played for during his prime years. Is Mourinho's pragmatism with Ferguson's ambition, the defensive organisation of a Mourinho team, the attacking intent of a Ferguson team. Two influencers, one system, and Carrick is the only manager alive who learned directly from both. That's not something you can hire from the outside. That's not something that Tuchel brings, or Ancelotti, or whoever the board interviews next. That's institutional knowledge, and it's already working. Mourinho once said Carrick had a big understanding of the game. Sir Alex once called him the best English midfielder ever. They weren't talking about passing range or positional sense. It was about something deeper. The ability to read a match, to feel when the momentum shifts, to know when to control and when to attack. Carrick had it as a player. Now he's proven he has it as a manager. The question is whether Manchester United are smart enough to recognise what's standing right in front of them. Because after everything they've tried, the special one, the philosopher, the Dutch disciplinarian, the Portuguese prodigy, what if the answer was the quiet one all along? If you enjoyed this breakdown and want football stories that go deeper than the surface, this is the channel for you. Subscribe and become part of a community that doesn't just watch the game, we dissect it. See you in the next one.